Welcome, I'm Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute and your devil's advocate. Later we're going to talk to Dave Kopel about red flag bills, gun confiscation, you know, what's going on in Washington and in the state capitol. But first, my alma mater, and I'm not proud it's my alma mater, the University of Colorado is so left-wing that they have to bring in somebody, ship them in a special container, and drop them in the middle of campus for a year at a time. It's a visiting fellow for conservative thought. Stephen Presser, you're the poor guy who got it this year.
Well, and it's a treat, let me tell you.
Now, you've had a lot of predecessors who come, and they do a year or so at CU, and they teach conservative thought because, trust me, we didn't get it anywhere else at CU. And all of them say the same thing that you said. Let me see if I get this right. Oh, no, it's very welcoming. They like me there. It's very pleasant. And, yeah, we have good ideological discussions. And I don't feel like I'm unwelcome at all. How'd I do?
Well, you left me very little to say. You got it exactly correct. It's a treat. I mean, part of the treat is I'm at the end of my academic career. I have nothing to lose, and I'm just enjoying the students and my colleagues. What I like to tell people is I taught at Northwestern University for about 42 years, and I was tolerated there. Yeah. Here I'm welcomed, and that's a change.
Well, and the reason you're welcomed is because you're an oddity and you're temporary. It's nice to have a weird house guest for a weekend, that's fine, but you're not family. And so if you were part of tenured staff, it'd be different. Why are there so few free market conservatives in academia?
I wish I knew the answer to that. The best one I have, we talked about a little earlier, and that's that they have sense enough to go out into the real world and make fortunes. It's hard to become rich.
You've got a pension, my friend.
Well, I have better than that. I'm a law professor and I consult.
Oh, really?
But, not everybody can do that.
But it's still a comfortable, lucrative life. How much is it that universities are just unfriendly to people who are conservatives?
Well, there's certainly a lot of that. And as I say, it's a little bit of a mystery to me. But at least in the law schools, conservative thought, libertarian thought is making a tremendous new beginning with people like the Federalist Society. Yeah. It's revolutionized legal education.
And you might have a better sense of this than I do. In the 60s, students demanded, free speech. They demanded something different. I'm starting to get a feeling that college kids are like, I need something different. Give me somebody who can teach me a different philosophy than the usual socialist hogwash that I've been getting ever since I went to preschool.
I think that's right. And the fact that I have pretty large enrollments in the classes that I'm teaching here at Colorado, I think suggests that. The students are hungry for something different, as you say. And there's an innate yearning for good sense and morals and history. And that's the sort of thing that a conservative supplies.
All right, then let's just dive right into it, because we get into these conversations. You guys are greedy, you guys are mean, the market is a wonderful theoretical idea, but in principle, yeah, I get it, but in practice, it's a way to oppress people. That what happens is conservatives oppress people, and there's privilege, and what you're doing is protecting that privilege. That's what this free market system does, and that's what you conservatives are doing. You're protecting your turf.
Well, you could say that. We're also protecting civilization, and we're protecting what's gone right over hundreds, thousands of years, really. Take away that foundation of Western civilization, and you end up with chaos and anarchy. Plato understood it. Sensible thinkers have ever since.
The difference between, have you ever heard of the book, The Three Political Languages? I forget who did it at Cato. Basically he says there are progressives. Progressives see the world between the oppressed and the oppressors. There are libertarians who see the world between liberty and chaos. And then there's social conservatives who see the world between order and chaos. So we have liberty versus coercion, I should have said. Liberty versus coercion, order versus chaos. So let's dive down into that. And So the Black Lives Matter issue, the progressive would say, look, this is racism, he's being oppressed. The social conservative would say, no, we need law and order, that's why the police are needed. Libertarian would go, why are we arming the cops like the paramilitary? Where do you fall in all that?
Right in the middle, as you suggested, with the social conservatives. It may not be popular, but all lives matter. And if we ever forget that, we're in grave trouble. The basic problem with the society today, I think, is we're deeply divided when we shouldn't be, because there are traditions, there are morals, there are ideas that tie us together, and we don't hear enough about them. That's what I'm supposed to be doing here this year.
Are any of those morals wrong? Don't we have a right to challenge those morals? I mean, for a long time, morals were that person is not really a person, that person's property, or this person, because of her gender, is not as good. Those were morals, those were traditions passed down, and I think they were wrong.
Certainly there are some traditions that could be dispensed with, but there are some that I think are eternal. The basic notion that you should treat others the way you'd like to be treated yourself, I think never gets old. And you can spin out, I think, a whole philosophy just from there.
I guess then, are we mixing religion and politics? I mean, that Jesus said what you said, along with a lot of other smart people said what you said.
Well, sure.
But it was the law that kept that person as lesser, and it was an institutional value structure that kept women this way. Isn't there a same, so that's orderly. That's orderly. Hell, the Nazis were orderly, but that's not the kind of order I want.
No, you want an order that's based in common sense and, if possible, in history. It's a really fascinating problem, though. You suggested that there's a difference between politics and religion, and I guess you could have said there's a difference between morality and law, but I'm not sure any of that is really accurate. The framers, intriguingly enough, believed that you couldn't have order without law, you couldn't have law without morality, and you couldn't have morality without religion. And I think that's what social conservatives to this day still believe.
So to boil it down to something that a dummy like me could even understand, are you saying that without God, we couldn't have a moral system of justice? System of law?
That's not just me. That's the framers and a whole lot of moral philosophers.
And those who would argue that
3,000 years.
That Jefferson was an atheist?
Well, Jefferson wasn't an atheist. He was a deist. He was somebody who did believe, I think, that there were lasting moral principles. And you remember, he even took the New Testament
and took out all the Jesus
references that Jesus had said, but preserved the innate morality in it.
I'm going to keep poking you at this. Do you mind?
Not at all.
Because this is fun.
That's what we're here for.
So this is where it gets blurry for me. That you say it comes out of morality comes out of religion.
Correct.
I would argue that morality comes out of common law, natural law, which comes out of more of an evolutionary way that people bump into each other and needed to solve problems in a fair way. And that's where we found out property rights matter, that free speech rights matter, that the Second Amendment matters, that privacy matters. And you see that throughout Western civilization. And so I don't know if I agree that if I proved the calculation there is no God, that all of this falls away.
It's not anything that you can prove, and a lot of it has to be taken on faith. But if you read the sources of the thought that you suggest, like John Locke, you get that kind of moral and religious foundation that I referred to a little bit earlier. I don't know of a civilization that's endured for very long without grounding in both morality and religion. If you do, as long as you can give me 500, 1,000 years, we can talk.
500,000 years?
500 or 1,000.
All right, 500 or 1,000. Well, then I'll give you one 500 or 1,000 years. What about the Islamic laws that are very tight? You know, you have Sharia law that is right there in the book and it's right there in the law. And let me tell you, a lot of that stuff I can't agree with. Sharia law is dangerous, but it's faith-based. God gave it to us, and therefore that's the fear when you have religion tied in with your laws. So if in a Christian, Judeo-Christian tradition, if we have the same thing, but it's just nicer, isn't it just a lighter version?
No, I think it's a question of what really is maybe right and what really is wrong. There are problems with Sharia. There are problems with the Quran. I can't buy everything in Islam. Some religions, I think, have access to truth. Others, maybe not so much.
Are there problems in the Bible if there are problems in the Quran?
There might be some.
Have you found any?
I couldn't quote you any right now.
Okay. Let's see if we can tie this to something, I don't know, that we're dealing with right now.
Sure.
Let's try immigration. So this is a big issue. So there is, in your orderly society, we're supposed to care for people. Orderly society, though, we're supposed to respect the law. These two seem to be clashing with people who are pouring over our borders. Where does your system tell you where we should be?
Well, I'm not sure if my system of social conservative thought solves this one completely with chapter and verse. But one thing I can say is, if you're going to have a nation, you certainly ought to be able to decide who you're going to take in and who you're not. Ideally, you would have a merit-based immigration system, and you would do away with what we have now, which is chain migration and the lottery. I don't think that makes any sense, and I don't think it's consistent with our historical values. Self-preservation is certainly going to be something that you'll find in any society, and I think immigration policy ought to flow from notions tied into that.
Help me with this. We've only got about a minute here, but one of my frustrations with social conservative thought is that we use the word freedom. The founders wanted freedom. And then I find a lot of social conservatives who go, the greatest gift God gave us was free will, but it's our job as social conservatives to take it away from you. So what we're going to do is we're going to outlaw the things we know you shouldn't do. You shouldn't have homosexual relations, you shouldn't have drugs, you shouldn't gamble, you shouldn't have more than however many wives are in vogue at the time. I see a contradiction there. Am I wrong?
Well, it seems to me that social conservatives believe that we have inalienable rights and that freedom is a part of that. Indeed, I think real social conservatives also believe that a lot of the restraints ought to come from within us and from our culture and from our morals and not necessarily from our law. A good social conservative, for example, thinks the federal government has grown much, much too large.
But we're bringing to the hot button issues. So would a social conservative go, yeah, of course we should legalize prostitution. That is something that is with you. That is a you wrong. It's not my job to tell you not to sin.
Well, I wouldn't say that social conservatives necessarily are in favor of letting people sin.
There we go. So they don't want freedom, do they? So in other words, God gave us free will. It's my job to take it away from you through government.
No, freedom is one thing, license is another.
And what's the difference?
Well, there's a profound difference. It isn't exactly that social conservatives believe you only have the freedom to do good, but there is some of that, I think, in it. And
I see a contradiction.
Well, I see you see a contradiction.
People want to get more involved and learn more about what you do. You write for Newsmax. You also write for AmericanGreatness.com. Is that a good place to see your work?
Well, it is, and there's a wonderful book that I have called Law Professors, 3 Centuries of Shaping American Law that indicates everything, I believe. No home should be without a copy.
Stephen, thank you. Welcome to Colorado. Stay tuned.